Hi, I'm Amanda Oscar, and you're listening to the Divorce Magazine Canada podcast.
Hey, are you or someone you care about considering, dealing with, or being through a divorce or separation? Well, you're in the right place. You don't have to do this alone. There are people who care and want to help. Hi, I'm Dina Court, an author, blogger, publisher, and empowerment coach. Thanks for joining me on the Divorce Magazine Canada podcast. You are going to hear from our team of experts and professionals how to navigate this difficult transition in your life easier, more efficiently, and with better outcomes. Did you know we host online divorce resource groups that are free to attend and everyone is welcome? Check out the links in our show notes and be sure and join us. We love bringing experts to you. Please refer to our terms of service available on our website, divorcemagazinecanada.com, and stay tuned at the end for the legal language. Ready? Here we go. In this series on the podcast, Divorce Diaries, you are going to hear candid conversations from people who bravely share their stories, their experiences, the lessons that they've learned through a divorce or a separation. And they are sharing these to encourage you, to give you some information and support around the experience that is really quite difficult and a life-changing event. This will be a place to meet people just like you who care and want to help so that you don't feel so alone. Let's meet our guest now. Hey, Amanda, I'm really excited to have you here and talk about a positive experience with divorce. I was really happy that you shared with me about what you did through your separation and divorce and how that is different from a lot of people's experiences. So, welcome, Amanda, to the show. And please tell us more about who you are and your story.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Amanda Oscar. I'm a mom of two teenage daughters. One of them is graduating next year, and the next one is already going to be in grade 11, or sorry, grade 10 next year. And yeah, I work here in Central Alberta, and I work at a law firm. I manage it and absolutely love my job. I think it helps me maneuver some of the fights at our house with children and two teenage daughters. So yeah, I start my story. I had met my first husband when I was 17 years old, and we were a little reckless, and I got pregnant right away with our first daughter, Madison. And at that point, being 17, I didn't know really what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to raise a family with the man who was the father of my children. We ended up getting married 2 years later and welcomed our second daughter, Sadie, in 2008. And my ex and I stayed together for just about 11 years after that. You know, we had a lot of great times. We had a lot of bad times. We had a lot of growing pains as, you know, he had finished his trade, his skills and his trade. So he was gone a lot of the time. So it was just me and the girls a lot. So for some of it, I felt like I was single parenting a lot of the time when he was always gone. And then it kind of transitioned to where my career was picking up. So we ended up having to hire, you know, help to help us because we both were at such a great point with our careers that we couldn't focus on our children at that point. And then we both realized that and took a step back. And when we took a step back, we kind of identified that we are a great family unit. We are great parents to our children. We parent well together. We are very modern day parenting. Whereas if our daughters want to do something, I can't think of an example. Well, let's think of an example. If our daughters want to smoke marijuana, you know, that question has come up, and my answer to them is, you need to look up the facts. You need to give me the facts. You need to give me your plan, that if you do, what happens if you smoke too much? What happens if you this? I'm not encouraging it. I'm not discouraging it. I need you to know the facts. After she read the facts, she's decided that she does not want to do that because she knows she has panic attacks. But she's making her own decisions. Steve and I really parent well with making sure our children are making their own decisions and their own repercussions of their decisions. So if it goes negatively, of course, we're going to be there for you. We're not going to rub it in your face yet, but we're going to sit there and afterwards we'll have a conversation about what went wrong and what we can do to fix it. But it was at that time we also realized that him and I can't do that together. We were not able to communicate. In my own personal life, I had been going through a lot of stuff, and it was really hard for the two of us to be able to commingle together. We just were not happy. We could put on the happy face for everybody. We could take our daughters out, anything to do with our girls. We always were there, but just him and I could not communicate. And people grow from 17 to 27. There's a big difference in age and maturity and children. We went through a lot of stuff, a lot of hard stuff, a lot of easy stuff, a lot of fun stuff. But at the beginning of 2016, we decided it was time to, we were just going to separate. It was just time to separate, to get some space between us so that we could think what we wanted to do. During that time, we still dated. We acted like a couple. We still went out on dates as a family. Him and I went on dates. But it just wasn't working. And what we actually did, instead of him moving out with the kids or the kids going back and forth, we would rotate him and I out. So he would leave for the week and I would leave on the weekends, stay with my mom. He actually stayed with my mom as well. But so we rotated us instead of the children because the kids were already going through so much. And in our head, we didn't want to just sell everything and get rid of everything and make them go into two homes if we could work this out. So we had given ourselves a year to figure it out. And we had gone through a lot in that year. A lot of ups, a lot of downs. We lost a couple of awesome family members that really took a toll on myself.
That's okay. This is heavy. It's tough. It's tough stuff. I appreciate you sharing.
Once I lost those family members, I just kind of needed a coping mechanism, and that coping mechanism wasn't my family at that time. It was, I decided to disassociate from my family at that time, which was really quite hard. But I also realized at that time I needed to get my head back on. So within 3 months, Steve and I sat down and we said, this isn't working anymore. This is officially done. Like, we're not doing this back and forth stuff anymore. It's emotional as a woman, it's emotional. It's emotional for him. It's even more emotional for our children. And I am a child of divorce. I know those emotions are there. I know what those kids are feeling. Well, I mean, not fully, but I know what those girls are feeling. I know how hurt they are and sad, and they just want mommy and daddy back together. And all the hope we're giving them by trying it wasn't going to happen. So we'd actually built a brand new house in 2015. So we ended up, and of course the market crashed right before that. We put it up for sale. So what we ended up doing is I moved out of the house. I moved out to Sylvan. I got the girls and I a townhouse that we could afford on our own because we did have quite a bit of money tied into that house. And then once the house sold, Steve moved into an apartment in Red Deer. So we had to really communicate well with the daily driving. We had to communicate well with our schedule. Because I'm more consistent with my schedule, our parenting schedule ended up being I have my daughters from Sunday night at 5 p.m. to Friday night at 5 p.m. And then Steve gets them 5 p.m. Friday to 5 p.m. Sunday. That part kind of sucked because I didn't get any weekends with my girls at first. So then once I started to realize that, we kind of altered it a little bit because schools are out so often. When they have the long weekend with a school out, he gets them then, and then I get an additional day on a Saturday or Sunday with them. One really awesome thing that him and I talked about is that, like, when we did this, because the kids were still, I think they were like 8 and 10 or maybe a little younger when we went through our divorce. we couldn't trust the kids to not lose keys because we never had keys. So I actually gave a key to Steve to come into my house, and I had his house key too. There was a couple of reasons. One, if the kids are home alone, at least I can get into the house, if vice versa too, right? As well as if he's dropping the girls off to me on a Sunday and I happen to be out for groceries and the door is locked, he can get them into the house. The first few times it was a little weird. One time I came home and all my ice cream was gone. And I do know my ex-husband loves his ice cream, so I kind of giggled and I sent him a message and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was bored, so I had some ice cream while I was there letting your dogs out." I'm like, "Okay." Like, the fact that him and I we've been separated now for, oh my gosh, what year are we in? 23, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
7 years.
Holy crap. I did not think it was that long already. We've been separated for 7 years and we have such a good friendship now. And I do not think we ever could have had this friendship if we had not separated, if we had not divorced. Um, like when it comes to stuff with our daughters, both of our spouses understand that Steve is the first person I will go to when there's an issue with our daughter, with one of our kids. We had to, our oldest daughter had mental health issues a couple years ago, and it was really severe. She ended up having to stay in the hospital for a few days to figure herself out. And Steve and I went for supper every night that week because him and I needed to be together as her parents, and that was that. But it was also because our spouses didn't understand, even though they've been part of their life for so long, they don't understand that emotional bond that Steve and I will always have with our daughters, right? It's stuff like that I look 7 years ago when we started doing this, and I never would have imagined going for supper with my ex-husband because of our daughter. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, we go for supper because of a birthday, but not just him and I going to just cope and talk. And like, this is what we never used to talk in our marriage. In our marriage, it was just get pissed off. One of us goes this way, one of us goes this way. We weren't pissed off. We were worried. We came together, and it also showed me how grown up we are now. Like, divorce is hard. It's hard. It's sad. It's scary. It's divorced 7 years and it's emotional still. And we've grown up, and I do say, like, he is my friend. I just got married in November and he brought my daughters out there. So he saw me in my new wedding dress with my new husband, and it didn't feel awkward. I mean, maybe it felt awkward to my husband, but it didn't feel awkward for me because Steve has been part of my life for 18 years. He's never going to leave it. He won't be such a big part of it in a couple of years, but it's so much easier to get along than it is to just fight about it all. Like the fighting and the manipulation. And I know a few people that they've been carrying it on for 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. And I don't know how you do that emotionally, physically, mentally. Not only that, kids aren't stupid. They do hear everything. As much as you try, like I know I've made the mistake of saying some comments when I thought the kids were in their bedroom. Turns out they're not in their bedroom. So now I really don't talk. Like if I need to talk to Luke about something, I go right into the bedroom with the door shut. Right. So it just, Steve and I's goal when we divorced was to always make sure our children came first, no matter what. If they wanted to live with Steve instead of me, we were open for conversation for it. Our youngest did want to go live with him last summer for a few months. She stayed there for a few weekends and she realized that this isn't what she wanted. She missed her mom. She's a mommy's girl. She missed the consistency. I don't want to say I'm a lazy parent, but I'm a lot more laid back. Like, let's eat supper and then we'll clean up in a little bit. Whereas their house is, let's eat supper, clean up now, right? Where it's different parenting styles between us moms that way. But at least Sadie was able to come and tell her dad, like, this is what I want. I want to try it out. And yeah, I was hurt because I was like, well, I'm losing my baby. I'm losing my baby, right? But the fact that she was able to openly talk to us about it and not be scared that she's going to get ramifications of negative impact, that she's not going to get yelled at. And like I told her, I said, you're not hurting my you're not hurting my feelings. I want you to do what you need to do. She was also going through some it's not even mental health. People at school, kids at school are mean. Are mean. Kids are mean. And she wanted to change the scenery for a little bit. But the fact that she felt so comfortable to be able to come and talk to both of us and not be scared, that's always been my goal with my children. My oldest daughter, she and I can have every conversation and it's not awkward. Like sexual health. She's 15 years old. And honestly, she asked me to come to the clinic with her to get some birth control. And I don't think at 17 I would have talked to my mom the way she's talking to me. Like, I don't want to know this stuff, but the fact that she can and she does, and my youngest does, and they're not embarrassed to ask questions about it, right? Like, it shows me that Steve and I are so on the same page with the way we raise them, because they're not even embarrassed to ask Steve. Like, he's the type of dad that'll go pick them up tampons if they need tampons. He's not one of those oh no, can't do that, right? He's so involved with them, even when it's my time with them. So they don't play sports anymore, but when they were, he'd always be there for them during the sports, and I'd always try to make sure I was there for them on their sports days. When I left, I did have to work a lot, 2 jobs, but I made as much as I could to do it, right? I don't think I could be in my marriage currently if Steve and I were still fighting, because it would be so much stressful. Like, I mean, Luke and Steve will never be friends. They they like football, that's about it, but they chat, but they have their difference of opinions on stuff, right? So but Luke and Steve's partner, they do respect Steve and I's wishes with the kids. At the bottom of the end of the day is what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, it is about what Steve and I want to do for our children. And even when it comes to discipline, we ask them, what do you want? What's the appropriate discipline? My youngest daughter took her door off her wall because she had a messy room and she felt that was the best discipline. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, she's disciplining herself. Yeah, she's tattled on herself a lot too. So like, we're doing something right that they
That's amazing, Amanda. I really think that there's so much to unpack here.
Yep.
And I'm just going to jump in at this point, because I think that's a testament to such a unique, ingenious way that you have allowed them to be empowered in their own decisions.
Yeah.
So this is a prime example where if they do that research and they make an informed decision with the research that they have found, it sets them up for life.
Yeah.
Instead of just you making the choices, you making the rules. And the fact that their father is on board with that is just phenomenal, that they see that people can be supportive, realistic, and present without being a couple. And like you said, that has supported the marriages that have happened since that relationship changed. And it has allowed for a healthier space for everybody. Absolutely. So it's so encouraging just to hear how beautifully you've managed this, and how, like you said, you're more mature, you're more grounded, you're further evolved than you were. And recognizing that, I think, is probably what had helped foster that. Yeah. You recognized that you weren't good together, but you also made it a priority to put the kids' interests and care and their health first. It's really commendable what you've created here.
We were great together as a family, just as a couple. We weren't. It's actually funny, the first, I think, 2 years on our wedding anniversary, we still went out for supper with the kids because we just called it a family anniversary, because we didn't know what else to do. And I mean, in the first little bit, there's still feelings there. You don't know, right? But we made it like this is the day our family was established. And I, even now, still on that day, I still send him a text. Thank you for helping me establish our family. Like, Mother's Day, I got a text from him like first thing in the morning, and I got from his wife too. Happy Mother's Day, right? So I like being a fam. I like, and his spouse has a child as well. So we are an amalgamated family, even if we're not sitting in the same house, we are all together on this boat. And, even though her son isn't raised the same way as the girls are raised, they cross so many lines that there's so much to learn. Like, I mean, I don't say I'm a good parent. I'm a better parent. I've just been parenting longer. I know a couple more things than the parent with a 10-year-old, especially with a 10-year-old girl, right? But the fact that, like, if there's any issues, I can send a group text and say, hey guys, like all four parents, and say, hey guys, we got to talk about this. What do we want to do? And then we always give the spouses the out. If they do not want to come, like do not want to talk about it, okay, understandable. For multiple reasons, they might not agree. I do know that my husband does not always agree with my disciplining aspect of it, because I am more of a, hey, you're going to do chores and you're going to do this and you're taking this away, instead of a 2 week in your bedroom punishment because they got everything in their room they want. I ground them out of their room type thing. So always give our spouses, like, we always give our spouses the respect of giving us their feedback of what they think we should be doing for discipline. Then Steve and I always talk about it, and then we come up with our solution. 90% of the time, it's all just a mixture of everything, right? Like, it's honestly, the kids are harder on themselves than we ever are. Like, when she took her door off, I was like sitting there, I was like, well, I was just gonna make you do the dishes for a week, but okay. It had, I can't remember what the issue was, but it was something to do with social media. And she's like, okay, well, as soon as I come home the next month, my phone's out here and I don't get this. And I'm like, man, I was gonna like just take it away for a weekend, but hey, okay, cool. Like, she was harder on herself than we were on her, right? But you're right, it's there's a lot of there is a lot of people out there that don't have the thinking skills anymore because they're not taught how to think. If a baby goes up to a stove, you're going to pull their hand away. You're not going to let them do it. I never did that. I let my children experiment with it. I also never yelled at my children. I never said, no, it was not to touch, or is that for you to touch, right? It was addressing it in a positive way versus a no, 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 no. It was, that's not to touch. That's not yours, right? Like, I had a very different parenting style, and Steve and I, we parent great together. And it's weird to see, like, my siblings are now having their children, and it's really weird to see because I don't parent that way. And like, listening to some other people that, we listen to the book, and I'm like, what's a book? And they're like, well, the book says let the baby cry for 10 minutes. I was like, oh no, I just let the baby cry till she falls asleep. And he's like, you can't do that. I'm like, this was 17 years ago. So I don't know which one you say. Like,
Yeah. And I think it's fantastic that your daughters have four very involved parents that can communicate in a group text and communicate in person, like communicate in so many ways, where you said that was basically one of the biggest things that you struggled with that broke down the marriage and that relationship in the first place. So that shows a lot of maturity on everybody's part, because everyone is at a level where they're open to being involved in that way, and they're willing and ready to support your girls and love them.
yeah.
Even though the styles might be different, the styles of communication, the styles of parenting, disciplining, everything has a slightly different take, but for the good of them,
Yeah.
this has been growing. And I really am happy to present a story like this to people, to
Oh,
give
I
them.
want to even go further. It's actually even better because Steve shows up to all my family functions still. My grandfather and my mom still invite him to everything. So my ex-husband, his girlfriend doesn't always show up, but he comes to the barbecues and he hangs out. And my new husband is kind of like, okay, this is getting a little old now, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with you, but I also go to his sister's house, and like his parents, Steve's parents came out from out in Manitoba, and they stopped by the house and hung out with me for a bit. Like, even though Steve and I aren't together, that's still my I'm still bound to these people forever and ever. We still are going to be bound to each other until the day we die because of the girls. And if we can show the girls and even Steve's and his person's son that, working together is what is going to get us through and build us up. When Steve can't pick up Madison on a day, I go pick her up from work, or, I can text him and be like, whoa, dude, I'm not feeling good. Go get her. Right. And he's like, okay, no problem. Or like, even like I said, tampons, I'm sitting at home. I could go get them myself, but he came and dropped them off. Right. Like, he's such an involved dad. And that was something I didn't have, but he's so involved that it's spreading to our families, and our families are still, I mean, we don't get together, a big family, and I don't think he is coming to any now, but it does get a little awkward. But the fact that we can still have a big barbecue and the kids don't have to pick between their mom and their dad going,
Right.
they can have their whole family there, and like Steve and I can sit beside each other. We're not a couple, but we have great communication skills. And if we would have, like, it's almost like sometimes he's like, I can talk to him like he's my best friend, because he just kind of, he was around for so long that he gets it. And it's just easy. It's easy to talk to him now. It is a lot. I mean, I don't talk to him about everything. I'm just saying, like, having a conversation with him is not awkward like it was through our marriage. It's not like pulling teeth that you don't know what to say and you just go your separate ways. I feel like I'm really boosting up my ex-husband here. My husband is amazing too. But it is the growing up for both of us is what needed to happen. There was a lot of healing that needed to happen for individual reasons. We I had a past I needed to deal with, and he stood by me through all of that. Even into 2018, he still stood by me through that kind of stuff and was there and comforting for me. And even though I had been with Luke at that point, having the person that was there at the start of all of my past, just, I don't know, there was something very reassuring that he came to the courthouse that day and just sat in the back, like, just something like, he was still supporting me, even though I'm his ex-wife of 3 years and he doesn't have to even look at me. He still supported me, right? I still get messages like when he hears my name in public or Rotary or something, oh, heard your name. Good job. You're doing awesome. Like, building each other up so that our daughters see that, yeah, you're going to have shitty relationships and you're going to have, sorry, probably shouldn't swear, crappy relationships and crappy situations. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And while we were going through our divorce, that tunnel was too big. It was too much. It was so dark. And there was a while we didn't really talk to each other. We couldn't talk to each other without yelling. And we both identified that and walked our separate ways. The probably first 6 to 8 months, we could only communicate on text, but that's why I see like how grown up we are. Like, I have the text saved, of course, but like I see how grown up we are, because now I can just call him and be like, hey, you got to do this, this, and this. And he's like, okay, what about this, this, and this? And like, I think because our kids are teenagers now, there's a lot more emotion in it on the girls' end, but not our end, right? Like, our end is just, hey, whatever.
Well, and you've created a stable space so they can safely feel those emotions and work through and live through those emotions that come with that stage of their lives. And it's a safe, stable foundation that you've created with intention. And what an example of hope for people to understand what's possible.
Yeah.
You must get some comments from people. Can you share if you've had comments from people that might see you at a sporting event or a family event or whatever it might be, and they're like, wait a minute, how come you guys can get along so well? Or how did you do that?
So I guess the most recent one was like our youngest daughter did the grade 8 grad last year, right? And my partner was working, like Luke was working up north, and his partner couldn't make it. So Steve and I just drove in together, and we're sitting there, and Sadie has had the same group of friends pretty much her whole life. Like they've all gone to kindergarten together. So, some rotate in and out. But I don't know that everybody didn't know we were not together anymore. And so, yeah, you got the looks, and then the ones that didn't know we were separated, they're like, what's going on? And then a couple people came up and asked me, they're like, are you and Steve back together? And I'm like, no. They're like, well, how do you like sit there beside him? I'd hate him. I'm like, I don't hate him. Like, I don't hate him. I'm bound to him forever. I still love him in certain ways where I'm loving my children, and I'm loving that he is the father of my children. I'm not in love with him. I love our connection, our friendship. And the people, yeah, they just say like, why? Why would you sit beside him? Well, I don't want to sit by myself. And him and I are going to sit here and talk. So like, why not? Right? Like, some people just don't understand. And then you have like other people, like I know at his business, he's got a couple people that are going through really nasty divorces, and that's how I always know when that those people are on his case, because he will call me and he'll be like, I just want to say thank you for being so easy to deal with. And I'm just like, that's how I always know if something's going on. But then I hear the kind of crap that's going on, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're fighting over a backpack? Like, it's the kids, it's the kids' stuff. The kids get to determine what goes to each house. Like half of the stuff I bought Sadie for Christmas, she wanted at her dad's house. I'm not offended. It's her stuff. Like, what? I don't grasp that idea. I don't understand that, because the kids need to feel safe in the home they're in. And if they're taking a backpack back and forth all the time, how are you feeling safe in your spot when you're in a temporary position? That was another reason the kids are with me for 5 days, is because I am the mom that does the mom stuff, right? And we do the school, we do everything. But with any of the houses we've moved, like, so we moved up to Sylvan, and then we moved into Red Deer. And then at that point in Red Deer, Luke was supposed to move in with us, but he ended up having to move to Drayton for 2 years because of work. So we had the long distance relationship, but the girls and I got that 2 years together. And I think that was one of the best things ever, because it's just the three of us, and we got to talk about a lot of things and be very open about a lot of things and create a safe place. They know that I'm a safe place. They know that I don't get mad. I'm more of that person that I got to sit there and I got to think about it, and I got to figure out what we're going to do and say. I mean, unless you come right up to me and it's like, I don't know. I haven't got mad in a long time with anything they've done. Like, they're very good girls too. Like, I don't even know when I got mad last, but I'm the safe place. I'm not gonna get mad. I'm not gonna like start yelling at you and screaming at you and all of that. So Luke and I have purposely created that in our home. So when Luke moved back home, we needed a bigger place, but we asked the girls permission if it was okay for him to live with us. We brought the girls to every house we looked at, because they needed to feel safe and comfortable when we moved into the house. And it nothing to do with anything. It was just, I have a background that I needed to make sure my daughters were safe and taken care of. And I also had a background where I was never allowed to give input into what I felt and thought. So, that was the thing. If the kids don't like somebody I'm dating, I'm out. I'm not going to even say I'll give you a chance. Obviously, if they don't like you, there's something going on. And if they don't like you because you didn't give them a chocolate bar, that's a different story. But the goal always was to make sure the girls are number one and feel safe. So when we finally found the house, the only changes the girls wanted was locks on their bedroom doors. And I absolutely not a problem. Like, but I mean, they're home, they're home video gaming today.
Well, and they obviously feel very safe in their home if they've removed a door now. not just a lock, but the whole door is coming off, and you haven't even needed to get mad probably in forever or upset because they're disciplining themselves harsher than you would have considered.
Yeah. I can always tell when something went on because my kitchen and living room are clean when I get home. Not just like super clean, and then I go, huh, what happened? Actually, my youngest daughter, she has to go to 7-Eleven on text, and I was like, no, stay home because we lived in Lower Fairview. Well, I get home. First of all, I see the points come through on my phone. So I'm like, you little bugger. Good thing my work. We're calming down. I get home. There's this big long note. The whole house is clean. The backyard's cleaned up of dog poop. Mom, I'm so sorry. I disobeyed. I should have listened. I'll never do it again. I'm like, I didn't even have to do anything. So I came home. I was like, thanks for disciplining yourself. And she's like, well, now what do I do? I said, I don't know, Sadie. Like, you're fine. Go for it. Like, there's nothing more you want to say to you. So it works good.
So I really, really, really appreciate how raw and vulnerable and real you've been sharing your story, Amanda. It's just such a ray of hope that, and you were honest. Things weren't always smooth. It wasn't just all positive, but what you've created here through it with intention and with the support of, your current partners, and the children are thriving with this care and being made a priority. So to wrap up, do you have any advice that you would like to offer to the listeners, how they can approach this and create this type of a space for their families?
So I guess the first thing is making sure you do give you and your spouse that space to start with. Because if Steve and I would have had to stay in the same house while we were selling the house and not rotate in and out, I don't think it would be as nice as it is now. You also have to make sure when you're going into that conversation, and it is a hard conversation. I mean, I was sitting on the freaking stairs and all he did was come up and said, we're done. It was hard. Every situation's hard. Just making sure your priorities are out there, that it's there for the children. And if it's not, divorce isn't about you. The divorce is about the children, because you're already, in my eyes, I was already being selfish leaving this marriage. I was the selfish person because I wanted to leave this marriage. He was selfish. So now we need to focus on our children because they're the ones who didn't have this choice. We made our choices for us. We can handle it. We need to make sure that the children, like our girls, were safe and protected and knew what was going on. Steve and I had many conversations. We did need our space at first. We really needed our space at first. We both had to get over some healing. So like I said, like the first 6 months, it was very hard. We did have a few blow-ups about stuff. There was a couple times we were only able to talk on text because it just turned into a monstrous fight every time. But the more I look back on these fights were because of him and I just picking on each other. I got ticked off because he went to go get crackers for Sadie, but didn't come home till 2 a.m. He didn't have to come home. And I got pissed off. More got ticked off because he woke up the dogs and he woke up the kids. Stuff like that. I was looking for the fight, and so was he. And once I stepped back and I realized that, hey, this isn't about him, this is about me. I needed to love myself and figure out with myself first. It's how he reacts to what I'm doing is just to keep egging me on. So if I stop reacting, he's going to stop reacting. And once we both could see that it's not about us, divorce, yes, I guess it is about you because you're divorcing, but it's really, I don't see it as, it wasn't about us. It was about our children. And we could not have pretended for the next 15 years while they were in the house that we could do it. It's not worth my happiness and me feeling safe. If you don't feel safe in your own home, in your own relationship, not in any physical or mental abuse, just safe as that's coming out really wrong. Just safe, you have your spot and you're not always anxious and I was always worried to talk to Steve about stuff because of how he would react because we couldn't communicate. When we did communicate, it didn't end well. So by the time we took that time away from each other, the communication started to flow again. And we did ask the kids what they wanted. We asked them, is it okay if mom and the girls move to Sylvan Lake? They gotta pick new beds, new bedspreads. Like, we tried to make it fun with them knowing that, hey, dad's not moving with us. And honestly, within the first couple months, like, the girls calmed right down. They realized that this isn't happening, and they were happy. Mom's house is always home. That's what they've said. Mom's house is always home, but they have their own bedrooms at dad's, their own space and everything. For Steve and I, we did end up still continuing a few therapy sessions after we separated, just so we could figure out how to communicate with each other. I'm a very blunt, upfront person. He's not so much. So he felt like I was always attacking him, and it's not an attack. It's just, as you can even see, I'm hands. I'm into my words. I'm,
animated.
Yes, I am. I don't sit still. I'm always doing something. And he's just a very introverted, like, hands in your lap, stay still. I don't want to go meet people. Don't do this to me type thing. And once we were able to identify that with the help of a therapist, we could start to talk again. And, like, there are some days I'll call him just to say, hey, this is what's going on in life right now, just so you know. And he does the same. And it's nice because I still can tell him what's going on in life, because it involves the kids, and I still know what's going on in him and his girlfriend's life as well. So it's
so creating that, allowing that space, backing off on the attack, like the defensive mode, and learning to communicate and allow for that communication. And there's, even if they've already established an unhealthy way of existing, you can start again, right? And just agree to disagree on, there's certain things that are just never going to align. But you know what? I don't like living in this anxiety. I'm assuming you don't. This isn't helping our kids. Let's just start over. Let's start. And so at any point there is hope for that, I would think. And just try.
Like, what I say, like, if I say something to you and you take it wrong, that's a reflection on your emotions and what you need to deal with. I also see it, like, so I see, oh, I've hurt her feelings. I need to find out what on my end. I mean, you could just be a sensitive person and I said it the wrong tone, right? But I need to own, like, you need to own that you're being mean. I needed to own that I'm an aggressive talker. And I mean, I still am an aggressive talker. It's a funny story. My new husband has told me several times, it's like, you're always mad. And I'm like, I'm always mad. And, but now I'm training my own brain to be like, okay, when I see that mood in him, let's just calm her down and take a step back. And, it's with Steve, he had to learn how to say it without thinking it was going to hurt my feelings, because he was always worried about hurting my feelings, and then I'd snap at him, right? And once we realized, hey, we can talk without me getting mad at the stupid comment you just made, but you were realizing the comment you just made is undermining and stupid, like.
Well, I think to be aware, we're well aware at that point of what triggers the other person.
Yeah.
So allowing that space for healthy communication. And I think the other point is that you offered the kids full participation in the things that affected them, and let them be a part of that. And it established not only that they were worthy of making that you trusted their instincts, but it helps, again, to give them some life skills.
My girls have always thanked me for including them, because there was a few decisions that they didn't get included on with their dad's side of stuff. And one of the big ones was them moving in together after a few years. And my girls are my life, they're my world. And if they're not happy, then I can't be happy because I'll be constantly worried about them. So, you know, it is always asking permission. Like, even now they're 14 and 17. And when Luke and I want to go out on a date night when they're home, we ask permission to go on a date night. And like, you know, it's including them. It's making them feel like they're not children. They're young adults that need to learn skills. And, you know, I didn't want to just go buy a house and my kids not like it. And then they're not going, you know, it's going to have bigger ramifications. And if I just move Luke in with our family, we are up, like, it was the girls and I for 2 years. So Luke moving in would have totally, well, he did move in and it totally screwed us all up. Like, we all had to kind of relearn everything because now we have Luke's here and he mows the lawn for us. And like, you take the garbage? What the hell? What is this? I don't have to ask them, right? Like, our day-to-day routine got screwed up because of it. And I mean, we've been living in the same house now for 3.5 years, and there's still times that he'll be like, "Well, why did you just not let me do it?" I'm like, just you still like do it myself still. Sorry, right?
That sounds like a good disagreement to be in, where it's like, wait a minute, you're
Yeah.
doing too much. I've kind of had that experience too, and it's actually a phenomenal problem to have. So,
Yes.
Amanda, I thank you so much for your time
Well, thank you
today,
for
and
having me.
for sharing a message of hope that it can be less painful,
Yeah.
and it can be, amicable in a way that you maybe wouldn't have expected, but it does take some conscious effort and it does take intention. So thank you
It
so
does
much
take
for
some
sharing that.
staring at home later.
Yeah.
But you are only responsible for your feelings and emotions and keeping them in check.
Fantastic. What a great note to end on. Hopefully you heard something today that helps you wherever you might be in life. Do you have questions or a suggestion for a topic you want to know more about? Let me know. Check the show notes for all the contact information. Follow this podcast and find us on social. Know anyone who might find this information helpful? Be a friend and share it. And hey, thank you for hanging out with me today. Keep smiling that beautiful smile. The world needs your sunshine. It means a lot that you spend this time with us and meet our experts and professionals who can help you through divorce or separation. Please refer to our terms of service available on our website, divorcemagazinecanada.com. The link is in the show notes. Our disclaimer: divorce resource groups, blog, and all content, including our podcast, is intended to educate and provide quality, credible resource information. The contents should not be used as factual until consultation with the appropriate professionals for any guidance. Divorce Magazine Canada does not constitute endorsements for nor liability for any claims made in the presenting of this information.